So,
Hmm.
um, so I know that you passed out of Bethany, you did reasonably well. You passed out of Jindal, and you've got a decent GPA. I was looking at your resume, and you've got a 7 point something out of 8, uh,
Hmm.
which is a decent GPA. And the last semester is not out yet, but I'm sure that'll go well
Yeah.
too. You're not expecting some shocker there.
No, I think I'm expecting a slight improvement, if anything. So,
Okay,
like
great.
last semester, so won't be that much, but yeah.
Okay, so I think you're at a 7.2 or a 7.3 out of 8. So you might go to 7.4 or 7.5.
Hmm.
So let's keep it in the same zone. And now you want to, so you tell me. I mean, I was reading what you mentioned, but you should tell me what you're thinking. Where do you want to head to? What's your goal?
Yeah, I think I think Ahmed had sent the list of questions.
Yeah.
So in that itself, I mentioned. Right, I am looking to do I'm looking to pursue mm, either finance, like an MSc in finance, or law. And the ideal plan is to do both. But in that will be like a MSc now, and then like a JD, like a few years down the line. But like I haven't fully, decided on that. But I'm leaning heavily towards finance as of now. So I'm planning on giving my CFA early next year in
Okay.
February. So I'm just preparing for that. And so I want, for most likely, I want to do like a international finance course. I'm really taking a liking to those subjects, get into like portfolio management, investment analysis, like that field.
Hmm.
So I think I'd mentioned that, like I'm aiming for the like colleges in the UK, the the top colleges.
Hmm.
And I wanted to know from like my question was, like what what colleges should I realistically aim for, and and what can I do to make my profile stand out apart from like I have a few internships in finance and like marketing and other fields, which will, I think, add something to my profile. But yeah, I just want to know what colleges can I realistically aim for, and what I can do now to help me get there essentially.
Sure. And why UK, Yash?
Uh, no, not just UK. I just brought up UK. UK, UK, US, Netherlands, France. So I mean, I just did a little bit of research, and I think the top colleges are in those countries, and I think like other countries in Europe, from what I heard from like my professors, like they aren't the best in terms of their job market, like uh, Spain and France also a little bit, but I think France is still fine. So I think UK, like the economy is like there's a good likelihood of getting good jobs right out of college. There's UK and US, like steady economies for that matter. So where you can, if you work hard, you will do well. No general recessions or anything of the sort. So that was my thinking. And I asked a few seniors, and that's generally the countries they tend to go to from their research and what they recommend as well. So
Yeah.
that was my thinking on the matter.
And is your plan to go do this MSc or masters of whatever kinds and then live there and work there? Or is your plan to then immediately look for a JD or a law degree?
No, I want to work after for at least, as of now, I'm thinking 3, 4, 5 years, but I mean,
Sure,
up or down, like less or more based on the current circumstance.
sure. Okay. So, um, so then the other element that you need to think about is which countries is it easier to get a work permit, which countries have a better economy where it's easier to find jobs, where you can stay on for 5, 6 years and work if you decide to not do or delay your JD,
Right.
then you shouldn't have to come back to India. If that's what you're looking for. If you want to come back to India, of course, it's fine. But a lot of times it's It's good to come
Mhm.
back to India if you want to come back to India, but it becomes negative if you have to come back to India because you don't have a choice of staying on there. So keep that as
Right.
a criteria. Now, uh, coming back to where should you look and how should you look, what will improve your chances of getting in. So let's divide this between the North Americas and Europe and UK. Um,
Right.
so across the world, wherever you apply, there are four things
Mhm.
colleges will look for, right? The first is your academics, your GPA. And academics basically means your GPA and what do professors say about you, right? So your
Right.
letters of recommendation, did you do a research paper in between, anything academic that you've done. Um, so that whole thing is your academics. And your GPA is quite decent, to be honest. Almost for any college, you have a decent GPA.
Yeah.
But the better, the better, right? The more, the better. So if
Right.
7.3, 7.5, it's better. If it's 7.7, it's better. If it's 7.9, it's better. So
Yeah.
the higher you can take it, is better. But the first
Mhm.
thing colleges will look for is your GPA. The second is standardized testing, right? So GRE, GMAT in this case.
Mhm.
Now, again, people say, what is the ideal score? Where the higher you can score, the better it is. And I'm
Mhm.
assuming you haven't done those things yet, so there's no use saying, okay, you are at this score. Should you do it again? When should you do it? How much should you prepare and all that? So, but
Right.
that's the second criteria. The third is your profile. And so this is where it gets confusing for people, um, because largely when you're applying in India, it's very binary, right? It's your academics that get you in. If you want to do
Right.
an MSc, MCom, kind of a thing somewhere. But when you're applying abroad, then this profile animal comes in. So it makes
Mhm.
makes it confusing for people. The simple way to look at it is great colleges are looking for students who don't need those great colleges, right? So if it
Right.
looks at your profile and says, I mean, this guy's got a 8.0 on 8.0 GPA. He's got a brilliant GRE or GMAT score. He's done 5 research papers. Professors can't stop singing praises about him. He's done, his profile looks so strong. He's done these internships where his bosses are raving about him. He did a startup of his own. He's, whatever you've done,
Mm.
it just shows you to be a superstar,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Why do people get so excited about going to a top college, right? Whether it's LSE or Oxford or Wharton or Harvard or Stanford or whatever. People get excited because these colleges have a great alumni track record,
Mhm.
right? People who passed out of these colleges have done well. But
Right.
why have they done well, right? The
Mm.
point is that LSE does not have a machine to convert a non-performer into a performer. So these
Right.
colleges through a microscope are checking if you look like somebody who could be their celebrity alumni,
Yeah. Makes sense.
right? So they are trying to
Right.
find out if, look, Yash is this guy, and whether he comes to LSE or goes to UCL or goes to Kings or wherever he goes, this guy's going to do well,
Mm.
right? There is no doubt about it. Even if he doesn't do his masters, he will do well because he's already on a roll. Then these colleges want you. So while we get confused when it comes to applications abroad or it comes to your profile, just put on a common sense hat and
Mhm.
it all becomes simple, right? If you were sitting in the admissions committee and you had to make a decision, ultimately you want people who will succeed.
Yeah.
And there
So
are
that the yeah. Yeah. Right.
and there are only a few ways to measure or evaluate if we feel they will be successful. So you've seen the guy's GPA. If the guy is doing really well in the internship, but the GPA is 5.0, LSE is not going to look at you. Your GPA is great, but your GRE score is really low, LSE might get confused.
Right.
Your GPA is good, your GRE is good, but you haven't done anything else, right? Now LSE is wondering, what were you doing? Were you watching Netflix all this time? So LSE is saying this guy's got a good GPA, he's got a good GRE score, but those are things which are passive learning, right? You went to a classroom, the Jindal professor came and said, okay, Yash, this is what you need to do. Tomorrow we'll take a test, come prepared. You went prepared, you wrote the test, you got a good GPA. It's passive. You were told to do something. GRE and
Right.
GRE and GMAT are again a sprint. They are not a marathon. You can prepare for 3 months, 6 months, write it, be done with it.
Mm.
They're also largely structured, right? There are coaching companies, there are books, there are tutors, there is all that available. But your profile is something that is completely yours.
Right.
So it is, if you've done extracurricular activities related to what you want to do in life, then clearly you went out there and did it.
Right.
If you
It
have,
was like your initiative. Like
it was
in
your,
this case, my initiative.
maybe
Yeah.
your parents guided you and some counselor guided you and you went for an internship where your boss guided you.
Mm.
But it was something that you chose to do. You woke up every morning and landed up for that internship and did some good work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why in extracurriculars or profile, the more that activity shows your drive, your initiative, you're building the structure, you're going out of your comfort zone, you're going into something which was not a structured coaching area, but an area where you had to create your own path, the more value it has. Okay,
Right.
because from that profile, they're trying to find out how would you react when you are on the LSE campus? Though LSE doesn't have a campus, but whatever, in their buildings,
Mm.
right? Or on the Oxford campus, or in the Wharton campus, or whichever college you go to. And the best way for them to guesstimate that is to look at how were you behaving when you were on the Jindal campus,
Mm.
right? Were you attending classes, coming back, doing your assignments, preparing for your tests, and then jumping on Netflix? Or were you connecting the dots and saying, okay, Jindal has villages around where there are people who are not so rich. So let me go and engage with them and find out what kind of microeconomic situations exist here. What kind of elements can I pick here? How do I help these people?
Right.
Or okay, I want to learn about microfinance. I want to learn about subprime loan. Whatever. So let me find an
Right.
internship in that space. Right. So I applied to 20 companies. 5 called me for an interview. I got 3 offers, and then I picked this company that I went and worked with. So colleges are interested more in why you did than what you did.
Mm.
What's the story behind it? Right. Again,
Right.
was somebody just telling you to do it, or did you have a reason why you did it? Or it's a very clinical reason that I thought colleges wanted, so I did it.
Right.
Okay. So use that as a thumb rule to evaluate what all should I do to
Mm.
make stand out of the crowd. The
Mm.
other thing, the second point to remember is that there are some things that most people do. The things that most people do and most common are an internship, a summer school, uh, working with a professor in college. These are the common things.
Mm.
They're not wrong, they're not bad, but they are more common.
Right. Yeah.
And then there are things that are uncommon, right? Uncommon are things
Mm.
which are less structured and not available on a platter.
Right.
Nothing is available on a platter, but if you apply for an internship, there is a structure for it.
Hmm.
You apply, you get an interview, you get an offer, you show up, you spend time in that company. But if you say, okay, I will go into the village and interview 1,000 people and do a research paper on that. Now that is unstructured. That is completely your drive, right? And that is completely
Yeah.
throwing outside your comfort zone, because why will those villagers speak to you? So now you need to figure out, how do you engage those villagers? Do you even speak the language they speak? How do you translate it? How do you record it? Do you go with a form? Do you go with a camera? Do you So there is a lot more of your life skills that you need to bring forward. And going into the village is just a dumb example I'm taking. It could be anything, which is not structured, which is largely your own initiative. So that's the second thing to remember, that whatever you're doing, is it things that most people are doing, or is it things that nobody is doing or very few people are doing? Either because
Hmm.
it's tough or because nobody else thought about it.
Right.
The
Mm.
third element is to remember that there is a difference in the kind of extracurricular activities that UK will look at and versus North America will look at.
Okay.
Okay, so
Right.
North America will look at almost anything you do. So you mentioned somewhere you have been in the debating society, right? You've done
Hmm. Right.
things of that kind. UK, if you're applying for MSc in finance, has no value for it. Okay, US does.
Mm.
UK is saying, show me the academic power. So your
Okay.
extracurriculars also largely need to be related to academics. Okay, so you could be teaching, you could be doing a research paper, you could be writing other competitive exams, you could be um, reaching out to professors and working with them. The more academic stuff you do for UK, the more they like you. Okay, if you've
Right.
been the winner of NTSC scholarships, if you wrote the KVPY, if you went for other Olympiads, if you basically did more academic things in your journey, UK has more value for it. US also has value for it, but they also have value for non-academic things. Okay, so
Right.
they also have value for, did you go and do a debating competition? Did you go for the Harvard Model United Nations? Did you go for a debate competition with the University of Chicago and LSE and other colleges, right? So US looks at every aspect of you and gives equal weightage. UK looks at largely your academic perspectives. Okay, so that's the
Right.
third thing to remember when you're looking at your extracurriculars. So those are the three things colleges look at: academics, standardized testing, profile. The fourth is your writing ability. Okay, so in terms of writing ability, you will write your SOPs and your essays when you're applying to these colleges.
Right.
So that's the fourth thing they will look at, right? How well can you present your story?
Yeah.
Um, and again, there is no standard copy paste model available. Different people use different ways to write, different styles to write. There is a particular format or an outcome which the college is looking for from your SOP, which is not super complicated. So you of course have to provide them what they need in the SOP, but the writing style has to be your own.
Hmm.
Okay. Again, the other element to remember is that in the UK, they are very British English, so more formal English. In the US, it can be slightly informal or semi formal. Even there, you can't be informal. These are formal documents. But in
Right.
UK, it is very formal, the language that you write. But those are semantics. Those are not as um, important things. The more important things
I think,
are the first.
yeah, I think just minor differences. I don't think it will
Yeah,
be that big of just semantics.
yeah, yeah. So it's the GPA, the standardized testing, GRE, GMAT, and your profile that you develop. Those are the important things. Now, in your profile, if you also worked, if you've got work experience, it always has value,
Right.
right? So there are two ways to look at it. One is that when people finish high school and go into college, at least in the Indian environment, it is almost mandatory that you don't take a gap year and you immediately go to college.
Hmm.
So, in a way, people don't have a choice. They have to go to a college. Good, bad, ugly, whatever they get, they have to go. But in masters, once you finished your college, you could be doing all this application process, but you could be working alongside. And if you're working alongside, then the big question comes that will you go only if you get a dream college, only if you get LSE, Oxford, UCL, whatever, or will you go even if you get a lower end college? Okay, there are
Right.
colleges it was easier to get in, where requirements are easier. And that's why I always tell people there is a college for everyone. Sometimes people say, how many of your students got college this year? And I mean, it's like a joke. I mean, I feel like laughing because everybody gets a college. It's not like we have a student who doesn't get a college. Everybody does get a college.
Right.
But the question is, did he get a college that is worth going to? Or did he get a college that he wanted?
Like, did he like settle? Like, I guess, or did he
Yeah,
get what he truly wanted?
correct. So that depends on several factors. But when you finish your undergrad and you're doing a job, you have the freedom and the luxury of choice because you have an option, a plan B. You're working.
Hmm.
So let's say you're doing a job and you apply, and early next year you realize that you've got a great college. You can say, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm going to quit. Right now, the decision is when do I quit my job and start packing and going after visa? And then there is another school of thought which says, or two schools of thought. One that says, don't go and do your master's immediately after your undergrad. And that's
Hmm.
subjective. It's no perfect answers there. Everybody should make their own choice. But it says don't go into masters immediately after your undergrad because you are still in a very student mode. You still feel like, behave like, work like a student, which means you might or might not be able to take your masters as seriously, and you might get overwhelmed by the competition in your batch with people who are 35 years old. So that's one school of thought or one point. The second point is don't go to your number one dream school. Um and these are just schools of thought. If LSE is your number one dream school, then don't go to LSE, go to the next level college. And the fundamental principle behind that is go to a college where you will be the top student, where you will be the dude that everyone is talking about. Go to a good college, but not necessarily the best, but go to a college where you will be the star, where you will be in the top 20% of students. Because whichever college you go to, as long as you go to a good college, whichever college you go to, it is important to be in the top 10%, top 20% of your batch. So
Right.
it, sometimes, when you want to go to Harvard and you're the 100th, the last person who just scraped through their batch,
Hmm.
you start feeling insecure because you start feeling I'm not as good as the rest of them. And
Right. Yeah.
people are studying for 2 hours and getting A stars, and I'm putting all night and still getting a C. People are much smarter. They are toppers of their countries and schools and colleges, where I was just a reasonably good student. I was never the topper. And because a majority is, perceivably better than you, you start losing your self-confidence. And you don't stand
Right.
out in that
Yeah.
crowd. Because again, you have to stand out in that crowd for the job,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, again, true.
right? So don't just apply to top colleges, apply to good colleges, but the next level also is another school of thought. These are very personal choices to make, right?
Hmm.
I'll give you my advice, and everybody will give you their advice, but finally you have to make a decision. Okay? Because even at
Right.
LSE or Harvard or Wharton or Stanford, there is somebody who tops the batch,
Hmm.
and that person is the best of the best. And so if that person decides I don't want to go to Stanford because I don't want to lose my self-confidence, that is stupid, because he was going to do well anyways,
Hmm. Right.
right? So again, which colleges should you apply to has to be a very personal choice. But all these countries have great colleges, no doubt about it.
Right.
Okay. What other questions? Do you have any other questions or reactions to what I've said? Or
My question was regarding the educational loan side of thing, like what the process is, like a brief, like when to start looking for one, like what are the banks, like any general advice on that? Like I haven't done my due diligence with research, which I think once I do, I will get a clarity. But till then, like any suggestions, advice from your years of like
sure, yeah, yeah, yeah.
experience.
So ways to fund your masters. One is scholarships, financial aid from colleges. Second is loans. Third is work alongside, earn while you learn. Many, especially master's students do part-time work alongside on campus or off campus. So that's a great way to earn some money. Student loans, almost all banks will give you a loan, private banks and nationalized banks. The nationalized banks' interest rates are lower. So if you go to a
Hmm.
state bank or Karnataka bank or one of the nationalized Punjab National Bank, their interest rates are lower. Their paperwork
Hmm.
is longer. Their processing time is longer, but the interest rates are
Hmm.
lower. The
Yeah, I
private,
think the cliche, like I guess the
sorry,
I think it's like public private bank cliche, like
yeah,
they're lower interest rates but more
yeah,
hassle, I guess, and the opposite
yeah,
for the private banks.
yeah. Opposite for the private banks, loan rates are
Hmm.
higher, but processing time is faster. Um, so that's one. The second is that banks will. When should you contact the banks? If you want to go next year, I would say now. Start contacting. Start gaining knowledge about their interest rates, which banks are asking for what kind of documentation, um, and they will give you loan based on your parents. So it will be a joint loan given to you and your parent, because you don't have property in your name, you don't have income in your name, you're not a regular earning member, earning enough to secure that kind of a loan. So your
Right,
parents will step in.
right. Yeah, I think that gave me a decent bit of clarity.
Good. All right, Yash. Have a great weekend. Enjoy
Yeah,
yourself. And if there's
yeah.
anything else you have, push me and we can jump on another call.
Likewise, sir. Have a great weekend. I think this was great. Yeah, learned like gave me a decent, like a lot of exposure.
I'm glad I could be of help. And I'm very
Yeah.
excited to know that once upon a time, many years ago, you came to Spark and you connected with Spark and you've reconnected with Spark. That's beautiful.